I think pivoting is so critical, especially today with the rapid rate of change in business and technology. I think it's really important to just really taking a hard look earlier at what's working and what's not working, and being willing to make that change earlier.
Are you a corporate escapee and wasting valuable time attempting to figure challenges out on your own? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a regular, thanks for your support. Our guest is someone today that thought they'd be an attorney following in their father's footsteps, but they fell in love with journalism and launched their own magazine. Now, onto their third business, they actually are a brilliant example of Build, Live, Give. So out of this podcast, you will get great tips on listening to mentors, how to pivot your business model and how to do it quickly, how to get through the toughest of times, and also he will definitely inspire you to live your purpose. At the end, I'll give you my top 3 takeaways. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Adam Capes from Getaway to Give. Welcome, Adam Capes from Getaway to Give to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Great to have you on, Adam.
Great to be here. Thanks, Paul.
Excellent. So why don't we start with something that your family or friends would know about you that we wouldn't?
I have recently ventured into stand-up comedy.
Great. And I've got to ask, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I've been up, I think, 4 times now, and getting a little more confidence each time. But I have not allowed any of them to come see me yet. So they're very interested in attending and seeing what I'm up to. But I've got to get a little more experience and a little more confidence in my set before I allow them to see it.
Yeah, you don't want the hardcore hecklers yet. Is that what I'm getting?
I just want to make sure that I'm on my game before I have my friends and family judging me.
And how long has this been an aspiration of yours?
I would say as long as I can remember. I've always really appreciated stand-up comedy and always wanted to do it, but never had the guts. And so it was on my list of things that I was really afraid of. I haven't had a problem with public speaking. I've been doing that as long as I can remember as well. But it's a big difference between getting up in front of a group and giving a speech and getting up in front of a group of strangers and trying to make them laugh. So,
great. And what was the tipping point? What got you to get over that fear?
A friend of mine who has been doing this for 30 years, been doing stand-up comedy for 30 years, was like, hey, just do it. I'll help you. And so I started the creative process of writing jokes, which is my favorite part of it, and running things by him. And, finally went and did some open mic nights.
Excellent. And was it easier or harder than you thought?
I'd say it's easier in terms of I wasn't really that nervous or fearful. And I would say it's harder to do clean comedy and get people to laugh. Mine is not always clean, but I can tell the difference between, I really respect the Jerry Seinfelds of the world who do clean comedy and can get an audience roaring.
Great. Well done for overcoming that fear. And, if you're listening here and you've got something you've always wanted to do and something's holding you back, like Adam's just done, get out there, do it. And as you can tell by what Adam's saying, it's bringing lots of joy. So why don't we now go to a little bit about how you got into running your own business?
So I guess I went to college and I thought I was going to go to law school. My father was an attorney and I was going to follow in his footsteps. I was involved in the debate team in high school, and I thought I was a government major in college. I thought I would be an attorney, and I ended up in college starting a newspaper with my roommate. and loved it. And I spent most of my college time working on that business, and even missed numerous classes because I was so busy running this company, this newspaper. So that's kind of how I got my start in business, and then I ended up in publishing with a magazine here in Atlanta, where I live, and then got into the travel business, and then launched Getaway to Give in 2012 as, I guess, my third major venture.
Right. And as I mentioned about the comedy, 2012, was it harder or easier the third time round to launch Getaway to Give?
I would say that was not a bad time. And I had come from the vacation space as well. So that wasn't as hard. Launching the magazine was very difficult, and the newspaper in college, because I really didn't know anything about publishing. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just kind of figured it up along and made things up as we went. And I was also in my early 20s, so it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and very different than when I launched the current company, Getaway to Give, in 2012.
Yeah, and if someone's listening here and they are in their 20s and they're sort of where you were at, especially around the magazine, what advice would you give them, on reflection?
Yeah, some of the best advice I've gotten, but I can't say I've always taken it. I wish I had taken it every time, is it's going to cost you twice as much and take you twice as long as you think.
Yep, I echo that as well. If I just cannot believe the number that I gave my wife on what I would deliver each month in cash when I left corporate. If I just had have taken that rule of thumb, I could have avoided some of those very unpleasant conversations. I think that's great advice. And for you, was there ever a time with Getaway to Give that you just thought, this is not working, I'm going to give it up? And if there was, what got you through that?
There have been many times where I've thought this is not working, and we've had to pivot and make changes. I think what got me through it was just this perseverance, this sense of I've got to figure out a way to make this work. This has to work, and we've got a very strong, bigger purpose or why, which is really making a difference in the world by helping charities and schools raise money. So I think that has gotten me through difficult times, and having really good mentors and advisors to go to, and not trying to figure it all out myself.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. So it's a great segue. Just tell me a little bit more about how you've picked those mentors, and what are sort of the things that, what's the frequency? How do you engage those people to help you?
Yeah, I have an executive coach that I found through, I'm in an organization called Vistage, which is a group of, there's chapters around the world, groups of CEOs that get together almost as a peer advisory board. And we have speakers every month. And one of the speakers I really took to, and he does executive coaching. So I engaged him, and been working closely with him for a couple of years now. And he's become a real trusted mentor and advisor. So I speak with him every other week for about 90 minutes and go through my biggest challenges and what's working, what's not working, and we talk things out, and that's been fantastic. And then I've got other advisors as well who are investors in the business and experts in different fields that I also lean on.
Great. And what's one particular piece of advice that your mentor's given you that's really stuck with you?
I had a business partner, and when we decided that it wasn't working and he was going to leave to do something else, I wasn't sure how to handle that within the company. and he advised me to have like a dinner and go around and have everyone talk about my partner and what they're going to miss about him, and give him a gift. And we did all of that, and it was the best thing I could have done. I think it was probably the classiest thing I've ever done in business, and it really showed a lot to the rest of the members of the company that this is how we deal with someone who's moving on to do something else. So I got great advice, and fortunately, I followed it.
Brilliant. Well, the next section is the build section. So when people say, "Hey, Adam, what do you do it?" or "What does Getaway to Give do?" how do you best describe that?
Yeah, we raise money for charities and schools, and the way we do that is with vacation packages and experiences that they sell typically at their galas or events in their live auctions. So we have 2 to 5 bedroom vacation homes around the world that we lease, and experiences as well with third parties that we partner with, and we provide those at no risk to charities and schools to raise money. And we've raised over $14 million so far for them.
Brilliant. And is it sort of therefore like an Airbnb for these particular schools and charities? Is that oversimplifying it, or is that?
Yeah. So Airbnb obviously has homes in cities and vacation spots around the world that advertise on their site. And what we do is kind of go out into these destinations and handpick what we think are the best residences in terms of the location, the size, the amenities, the feel. So it's a little more boutique. It's a lot more boutique than an Airbnb. And we feel that we're able to provide experiences that we've kind of custom tailored, and there's no risk. You don't have to worry about a place not being nice or in the right location and all those things that could go wrong on a vacation.
Great. And what do you know about picking locations? Give us the insights, because I'm sure everyone listening has had a good and a not so good experience on Airbnb or picking these great destinations. What are some tips you can give us on how to pick the right ones?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to go by the internet and pictures, because people are generally going to show the best pictures they have of certain rooms, but not show others. It's hard to understand what the location is if you're not familiar with an area. And the reviews are generally going to be the owners are going to do everything they can to make sure that there's not bad reviews posted. And I think it can be very difficult to select things online. So I would say the more information you can get to see it first before you go, or talk to the owner directly and ask a lot of questions, understand where the area is. If you can do that kind of due diligence, you'll probably be okay.
Okay, great. And look, my advice, very tactically, but when I travel through Europe, as an example, I would always go to the hairdressers or the fashion shops and ask them about certain things, because I found that they were often, they obviously love to, they see lots of the locals, they have a lot of local knowledge, and I found they were actually better than some of the information and travel people. So that's my little local tip if you're in a town.
That's a great idea as well. Yeah, any type of inside intel you can get from someone, other than the person who's trying to sell you their place, rent you their place, I think is very wise.
Great. And, you talked about schools and charities. There's so many of them globally, which is fantastic. But how do you pick the right ones to work with?
So we have a team of 8 people spread out in major markets in the United States, and they work primarily in their cities, and some of them have, all of them have other kind of secondary cities that they cover, but they they get to know what the top events are, what events we can really help move the needle and raise substantial money for. And while there's 1.5 million nonprofits, it's a pretty small and tight community at the local level. So it's not very hard. They all advertise when their galas are, and there's guides and everything. So they want people coming and attending. So it's not hard to find the right events. And then, we call on them, and we also work with the top benefit auctioneers who actually sell the trips on stage.
Great. And, you said you're 14 million, which is brilliant. What would you like that to look like in 12 months, 2 years' time? What's your growth rate and projections?
Yeah, we'd like to add, start adding 5 million a year, and then 10 million, and growing exponentially at that rate.
Yeah, and what's your sort of key focus to do that? What are you really doubling down on to be able to grow at that rate?
I would say adding more, growing our sales force, and adding more unique packages that we can get into more events.
Great. And with your sales force, how do you go about, or what are the key things that you look for in a really good salesperson within your specific industry?
So we look for people who hopefully have some experience in working in the nonprofit space, and good sales experience as well, and really understand how to identify and help solve problems.
And what, if you do get it to another 5 million a year, et cetera, what would be different in both the schools and the charities that you support, but also in your life? What difference would that make to you?
Well, we'd be helping that many more organizations, and there are just so many out there. The difference for me would be we would have a larger team. I have a vision of being able to start doing this more online and opening it up to even more organizations. So I think it would help allow us to pursue that vision.
Great. And your business model? So since 2012, has your business model evolved at all? I know you're talking about going online, but what are some of the biggest changes or pivots you've done since 2012?
Yeah, we had one major pivot, which was we originally started out as a destination club, which is still part of our model, but that was really the only thing we started with, which means that individuals and their families were buying in to the club, which is called G2G Collection, so that they could travel with us, and half of what they paid as a membership fee went directly to charities. And we just found that wasn't the most ideal way to raise money for charities, and that if we worked with them directly and used our knowledge and leveraged our collection of vacation homes, we could raise a lot more money for them at events than getting individuals to just buy in. So we pivoted, and about 4 years ago, changed our focus to more of working directly with nonprofits and charities and schools to help them raise money with our packages. We still have the membership side, but the charity side is much bigger.
Great. And, I suppose it's always obvious in hindsight, but how long did it take you to make that decision on the pivot? Was it something that was dead obvious, do it next day, or did it actually take a bit of time to get there?
No, it took about 3 years to really figure that model out. We made a go of it just selling memberships, for the first few years before we said, there's got to be a better way to help the charities raise money and do something that's more viable and sustainable.
And if you look at, once again in hindsight, what's some advice if someone's, business model's not working at the moment and they're going to go through and make a pivot? What would you have done differently in hindsight to pivot maybe earlier than the 3 years?
Yeah, maybe just really taking a hard look earlier at what's working and what's not working, and being willing to make that change earlier. I think pivoting is so critical, especially today with the rapid rate of change in business and technology. I think it's really important to pivot, and sometimes pivot many times. There's big pivots, like I mentioned, and then there's smaller little changes and pivots that we're constantly evaluating and making. And I mean, I think one of the best examples of this on a large scale that most people would be familiar with would be if you look at Amazon and how they started out as a really online bookseller and what they're doing now. I mean, they've pivoted multiple times.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant example. And as far as you getting more, talked about your sales force, but are there other things that you've done to get more schools and charities as clients of yours?
I think partnering with auctioneers has been important. And we get referred from current going and attending events and meeting people, and our members refer us into events as well. But I would say partnering with auctioneers has been one of the major ways.
Great. And you talked about your team. So you said, you've got a team that is remote within the US. Just tell us a little bit more about that, and how have you gone and built this team over, the last 7 years?
Yeah, we've looked. We've had people come to us and say, "Hey, I am with a charity. I've worked with you guys. I love what you do, and I want to help more than just this one organization." And so we've had people come to us. We've had referrals from our employees. We've advertised and found people through that search effort. And we've made some great hires, and we've made some mistakes. And I think one of the toughest things in business is getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. Mm-hmm. So that's just an ever growing challenge that we're always looking at.
Yeah, and I think that was famous. I think Jim Collins in Good to Great mentioned that, didn't he? Having the right people on the right, what you mentioned. He
did. He also talks about taking a brutal look at where you are and at the challenges, but having this steadfast belief that you will prevail ultimately and succeed. And that's something that, back to your question about how do you get through the tough times, I think that's got to be one way that you can address it, which we've tried to do.
Yeah, my team listening to this will laugh because I say that all the time. Be brutally honest about today and have a clear vision for the future. I'm sure they play word bingo with me how many times I mention it a day. So look, before we go to the live section, I would like to give you some killer content on LinkedIn. So just search Build, Live, Give, and you'll find me as an employee, and send me a personalized invite saying that you heard me on this podcast with Adam. And once we're connected, you'll see my daily post to help you double your business, to fund your lifestyle and give back. So now, Adam, into the live section. So what are some daily habits that help you to be really successful?
Yeah, recently I've been meditating every morning, and every other morning I work out. So I think those have both really helped me. I try and every day, at the end of the day, write down a few things that happened that I was very grateful for during the day, and I try and write down the five most important priorities I have for the next day, so that I know exactly what I've got to be doing and make sure I get those done before I do anything else.
Great. And on average, in a week, how many hours you're working at the moment?
Man, that's hard to even calculate. I would guess it's somewhere around 70 hours.
Great. And I get the sense that may be too many. Is that fair?
when you're building a business and I love what I do, I don't know that it's too many. I'm able to find time to be with my kids and my wife and do things that I enjoy, outside of that as well. So I'm just, I feel like I can balance that. Maybe the ideal number would be somewhere in the 50 or 60 hour range.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Okay, great. Well, look, I know at the start you said you don't have a virtual assistant. I think for anyone listening, one of the easiest ways to get from 70 to 50 is to get a virtual assistant. I think that's just essential. And for me, I've got 3. And I wouldn't be working my sort of 40 to 50 hours a week if I didn't have them. The next thing is, when you do get some me time, where do you love to spend it? What does Adam love to do when he's, just doing something for Adam?
Big soccer fan, so I love following our soccer team, which happened to win the MLS Cup last year, Atlanta United.
Great.
And American football, the Falcons. So I follow all the Atlanta sports teams, and I like to play tennis with my son, go for runs or walks, play chess. I read quite a bit.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, I think, it's so important to have that me time. Now, the next section is the give section. And, given what you do, I think this is pretty obvious how you support people. But just how did you get there, Adam? Like, I know you started with half of the income going when you first started the G2G collection. But, a lot of people talk about really giving back, but they don't. How did you, or what drove you to sort of, I suppose, stand by your convictions and actually do what you do?
Yeah, before this, I had another destination club, and it was wonderful. But I just felt like we were helping a lot of wealthy people have great vacations, but not really making a difference in the world. Mm. So I just I've always wanted to do something that would really help people. And I decided I didn't want to wait till I, let's say built a company or sold it, made a lot of money, and maybe I'm 70 or 80 and then start giving it away. I wanted to do it now and try and combine the two. So I'm building a company and building wealth and helping people and raising lots of money for great causes at the same time. So I think it just dawned on me that, there's a way to take what we are experts in, which is vacations and destinations and experiences, and use those to really make a difference and help organizations raise money, which is always, the number one challenge, I think, in the nonprofit industry is, how do we continually raise more and more money?
Yeah, look, I think that's brilliant. And as you said, if that purpose is really clear, you've got to succeed. And I love the fact that drives you because you've got the right purpose versus just making money. So, that's why, I've built Build, Live, Give, and that's why the company's called that to, basically do similar to what you're doing. So the last section's the action section. I'll just ask some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first thing is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
Personal effectiveness, I would say I take notes in Evernote. So I don't have to try and remember conversations because I don't have a very good memory, and it's much easier to take good notes and helps me be a better listener. Number 1. Number 2 is to ask a lot of questions, whether you're in sales or, be curious, I would say. That's a good personal effectiveness tip. And the final one is always look to improve, always look to learn something. I think anyone listening to this podcast is probably off to a great start. already doing that to a high level, because listening to podcasts and reading and watching videos, TED Talks, all of those things I think can really help people grow and learn. And so it's been important for me.
Brilliant. And what's some technology that you're using to run your business that you really couldn't be without?
Our CRM, which we use Salesforce. If we didn't have that, we'd be in trouble. Brilliant.
And what is the best source? You talked about this curiosity. You talked about podcasts, which I love, YouTube. Is there any other way that you get fresh and new ideas to help you continue to grow your business at $5 million a year?
I would say Vistage, the CEO organization I'm in, and listening to great speakers on all sorts of different topics on a monthly basis. I get a lot out of that.
Brilliant. And what's the end impact that you want to leave on this great world?
I just want to inspire people to help others and give more. I think that really feeds the soul, and it's one of the big three of critical pieces of lasting happiness, I would say. So relationships, personal growth, and contribution. So I want to inspire people to contribute and do it in a way that fulfills them.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I suppose social media has a lot of people standing next to corporate jets, and all of these people that have built 7-8 figure businesses overnight, etc. But I think people like you are the people that I want to connect with and support, because I think you've got a really beautiful purpose. It's very clear, and I think you are doing a lot to help others and being selfless in it. So I think it's brilliant, and people can find out more about the great work you're doing at getawaytogive.com, and that's with the number 2, and we'll put all the links and everything in the show notes. But Adam, I just really appreciate what you're doing and what you stand for, and I love hearing it live on our show today. Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate you having me on, and I hope I was able to bring some value to your listeners. Yeah, definitely. And if you are, to Adam's point, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. So you can email at paul@buildlivegive.com and just give feedback, and I'll certainly pass that on to Adam. So thanks again, Adam, for coming on. My pleasure. Thanks, Paul. That was such an inspiring episode with Adam. I really loved it. And he does definitely live the values of Build, Live, Give. So what are my 3 key takeaways? So one was define your purpose and live it. I think Adam definitely displays that. The second is pivot quickly. He had some great advice there. And the other one is being curious and join a community that inspires you, that you constantly learn. You can get the links and all of the show notes from buildlivegive.com/podcast. If you'd love to be a guest on the show, just email support@buildlivegive.com, and please take action to build your business, to fund your lifestyle, and to give back.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening, and be brave.